Hi, hello. So
Again,
again,
hello.
yes, hello. So what are we discussing? What are we discussing today?
We were going to talk about the I think it's 2019 film Midsummer,
Hmm,
Ari Aster. Um,
yes, yes.
Another many layered,
Hmm.
interesting
eh,
horror film.
Right, right. And we have already done Hereditary in our channel.
Right,
So those of you who are Ari Aster fans can also check that video out.
right.
But today it's going to be Midsommar or Midsummer. Um, So where do we begin? It's a complex film, and
Very.
yes. So what
Um,
aspects of the film like struck for you and stayed with you?
well, there's many. The first thing that just jumps to mind is
Mhm,
tied to one of our previous recordings that we did about
mhm.
um, good, evil, dark, and light, and the way in which this film uh, primarily takes place in very bright light in the daylight, and how we could look at this film as an example, at least in certain respects, of the concept that we had previously discussed, which is the evil light, or evil that is not coinciding with the dark.
Mm.
um so yeah, but yeah, there's a lot going on in this one, and
So that's an interesting point that it's a horror film, officially, but there's hardly any darkness. It's all happening in broad daylight.
right,
Um, and also another thing, everybody looks awfully nice. Everybody is smiling, they're welcoming, they're sweet, they talk so sweetly, and
right,
the whole thing actually is so banal in the sense that none of this even feels like strange to anybody there. It's just, usual for them. And yeah, so it's happening in broad daylight, and it is happening um, with smiles on the faces. Uh,
right.
so
And at the midsummer point,
at the
so
midsummer
the
point,
height
yes,
of daylight,
yes.
um warmth and sunshine.
Mm.
uh yeah, and so yeah, I mean, we
Eh,
could jump in anywhere and talk
yes.
about.
Yeah. So one point then that strikes me now is, do you call this a horror film? Was there I mean, one like sort of basic definition of a horror film would be that there are moments that are scary. Did you find any such moments in the film where you were scared, where you felt? I think there were no jump scares. So anything else where you felt that this movie actually falls under the horror bracket or category?
Yeah, and I guess the elements that constitute horror really are just tied to uh, the way in which the characters, that would be Mark, Josh, Christian, Simon, Connie, Danny, they believe themselves to be going to a certain place for a certain reason. And, that turns out to be something quite different. And so that has got a horror feel to it. Um, and then I think, the use of hallucinogenics, right? I think can
Mm,
introduce a little bit of horror.
mm,
Um, Terror maybe is even a better word.
mm,
So,
mm.
and again, I think the horror does lie in that contrast between what certain characters believe is going to happen, and what does happen, and how we come to understand that this was clearly by design, that
Yes.
that it was purposely carried out. Um,
Yeah.
and then, of course, the whole opening, right, that really gives us or sets up for us the
Mm.
character Danny, right, with her sister, and what her sister does, killing herself and her parents. Right, that's pretty scary.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but
So those are like moments in the film that are really unsettling, but we can already see that it's actually radically shifting the categories that we often
right,
deal with. So,
right,
so that on its own is quite an innovative thing because it's once we start thinking about what exactly was unsettling.
right,
I mean, there were obviously unsettling moments, but it does make you think because it like plays with those categories in new ways. So that's on its own really interesting. So you mentioned Danny. I thought I thought we could begin our discussion with another character. We'll come to Danny
hmm
obviously later, and she's the most important character. But I thought that a good window into the discussion, which will shape the discussion in a certain way, would be the character of Simon. So I want to begin our discussion with Simon. Um,
interesting.
yes.
Okay,
So to me, he is actually a really interesting character. Now,
right.
as we begin um, this, the first sort of thing that I noticed about Simon and Connie
Right.
is that from Danny's perspective, this is like the ideal couple, and they're
hmm
loving, they're sweet, they're wonderful. They're engaged also,
Yeah, recently engaged.
recently engaged, and they take care of each other. It's impossible for Danny to believe that he could have left that place
Right,
without her, which is would be something that Christian would do, but something that Simon
right,
would never do. So Simon is an ideal figure, I think,
right,
from Danny's perspective. He is the boyfriend she I mean, I don't mean that in that she's not thinking in that way. She doesn't, but he does represent some of the like features of a good guy that that um, would have played a much more um, caring and a role in her life. Anyway, so that's the sort of the background to how I saw him as a character from Danny's eyes. But the
right,
event that for me is really interesting with Simon is him freaking out on the I can't pronounce it, but as the uh,
Atastuta,
at
Atastuta.
yes, and
Yeah,
all of us know that scene. It's the most unset. If there is an unsettling scene, it would be that scene
right,
where
right,
these two old couple at age 72, which would now I didn't think about this before, but which would mean that every couple when they're marrying have to be of the same age, I guess. But anyway, so they voluntarily give their lives by jumping off this cliff. And
right,
in a way, Simon does not acquiesce or does not acclimatize with
right,
this, right? So he is not um, he does not quite blend in. I mean, he blends in. He's a good, nice guy, courteous with everyone, and so on. But when it comes to this, he
right,
completely freaks out, and
right,
and that freaking out also is something that is interesting about his character from Danny's perspective. I mean, he could be, I mean, there's from another angle, he could be critiqued maybe for not knowing what he's going into.
right,
He should have figured this out before. He should know where he's
right,
going. He should know that this is a different cultural context that he's entering. And so that's but I'm looking at him from Danny's perspective, from Danny's eyes. Um, him freaking out like that
hmm
and not being able to be consoled, not accepting the explanation,
Right. Hmm.
being vulnerable in that moment, being culturally, being not caring for looking like a person who's culturally unsophisticated or uneducated, just freaking out in a human, vulnerable way would be what I would have expected, or Danny would have wanted Christian to do when something similarly horrifying happened to her life. And
Right.
there's a moment in the film where those two uh, uh, figures are like replaced with the images of her parents. So definitely, from her perspective, these two scenes are related, or these two events are related, and so he is interesting in that he becomes like this vulnerable ideal one, and he's also an interesting figure to think about in thinking about pluralism, because he is at that moment at least not understanding
Right.
of cultural difference. So that's one
Right.
important thing about him. And he also um, really, because I've been thinking about this like the whole night almost, because I slept quite late and I was thinking about this. One unsettling thing about the film could also be the amount of care Danny needs, given what has just happened. It just happened.
Hmm.
And the sort of care that she is given. I mean, the difference there is itself horrifying. The
Right.
so Simon to me figures as that sort of contrast,
Mm.
human, vulnerable, uh, not quite uh, sophisticated enough to understand that these are different
Right.
cultural aspects and so on. And one last thing before I stop about Simon, it felt to me that Danny obviously is disturbed by what happened, but she's also disturbed by how less disturbed Christian is by what happened.
Hmm.
So she says to
Hmm.
him that doesn't that didn't that like freak you out? And he's like, yeah,
Right.
that was really unsettling. He didn't even say unsettling. He said that it was really uh what is the he used some soft word. It was really shocking,
Hmm.
he says. And
Right.
to her somehow uh that is when she decides, I feel that, he's not the, she always
Right.
knew kind of that he's not the best boyfriend in the world, but that's when she feels that, this guy is
Right.
not good. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my sort of opening
Yeah.
points from
No, right.
Simon's point of view.
And in that scene that you just referenced is after the Adastupta occurrence, Christian is standing there conversing with one of the members of the Harga, asking questions. And that's when Danny approaches and says whatever she says, and then his response, like you said, it's he sort of affirms her just being disturbed, but seems to minimize it, and he immediately shifts his focus
Immediately.
back to
Yes,
his own self-absorbed query with this Harga member.
yes, yes.
You tell that, and there, there's various moments in the film where she clearly either says something or does something that lets you know that she's like begun to take note of Christian's deficits as a romantic partner.
Yes,
um she even says, I when Simon disappears, she says straightforwardly, I could see you doing that.
exactly.
Right. But not that she expected Simon to do that to Connie, but she could see Christian doing that. Um, but it's interesting what you said about Simon, because on the one hand, he is the one of the non members of the Harga who has, I mean, Connie's upset too, but he's the one really vocalizing his disapproval and just general outrage at the Arastupta event. And I kind of have a few thoughts about that. Remember, they're from Great Britain, And, if we just think about Great Britain as the parent of America, right? And sort of even the tradition and philosophy, you've got
Take
your
what you mean.
Anglo philosophy, right? And then, so he, in a way, you could see ambivalent, really. You could see him as totally like upholding a standard or a principle,
Mm,
right? That he's just not willing to even consider being lax on, no matter what culture he's in,
mm,
right?
mhm,
But as you noted, at the same time, he could also be seen as lacking
mhm.
sort of the pluralistic orientation that would allow him to, while still being upset, at least acknowledge,
Right,
right, that different peoples do things in different ways.
right. Mhm,
But I actually felt like all the non-Harga characters, it was at a certain point when I'd seen the film 3 or 4 times that I
mhm.
started thinking of those characters, specifically the male characters, as sort of representative of types, if you will, of men.
Yeah,
Again, not all men, right? That's why there's more than one type,
yeah,
and that those characters are kind of like that.
right.
And in that regard, Simon is at the top. Simon
Mhm,
is the more um,
yeah.
principled, you could
Mm,
argue,
mm,
caring, concerned. He's also,
mm,
friendly and civil.
mm,
And granted, we don't go into those characters as deeply
mhm.
as the others. But we could definitely rank them, if you will. And then, we have Josh is sort of representing, in my opinion, the driven intellectual, right? He's got a goal, an agenda with his studies. He, is looking to achieve something academically. And he is the only one that at least appears in the film to have an idea what's coming with the
Yes,
Aristupta. And
yes.
I thought it was interesting that he didn't share that with his group in any way, which I was like, he might have a little bit of a sadistic element to him where he was going to take pleasure in their, being horrified. Um, and then you've got Christian, we can go on and on about him, but just in brief, he's just, he's really kind of mundane and sort of typical. Um, he's not a wholly bad person, but he's, not emotionally available. He is accused by Josh of being lazy intellectually, right? He wants to take the
And,
easy way.
and I think he also, one of the things that he actually, the only thing he needed to do was to be brave enough to break up with Danny when he's not
Right,
into her. So he doesn't have the courage to be honest with her. That's
right,
the main problem with him. I mean, yeah, everybody can be lazy. I mean, he's not like he's not out there to hurt people or I mean, the movie is more
right,
complicated than that. That's not the sort of villain that he is. His main issue is simply that he's not true to his feelings. And
right,
in that sense, the supposedly worst character among the friends worst in terms of character because Pele could be seen as the sort of the main villain. I don't mean that, but the lowest character in terms of personality and character and so on, it
right.
would be Mark. But
Absolutely.
but at least he is honest to what he wants. He's always
Right,
honest. He just says
right,
what he wants to take that the mushroom or the weed now because
right,
otherwise I mean it would be different trips and he's just open about what he feels.
right,
there is
right,
there is something better
right.
about that kind of
Arguably, yes.
yes. um
Uh-huh.
and when he sees that the a beautiful girl,
Mm-hmm.
he would say what he feels.
Right,
Christian might be feeling that too, but he wouldn't say it. Um, our intellectual here might feel shy or ashamed of saying that because that's low. Expressing those kinds of things is lower than expressing
right,
anthropological observations. So he wouldn't
right,
say that too. But our guy Mark, he is in that sense he is in a defective way. He's like Simon. He is,
right.
you know,
At least more authentically
Yeah,
himself,
authentically
right?
himself and
Right.
authentically shallow,
Exactly.
not
And
trying
a
to.
little bit like it makes me think of the Nietzsche when he says that basically what gets considered good is what's stupid. And that's how Mark strikes me. He's like a good old boy. He's like one
Yeah,
of the guys. He's like,
yeah,
but he is shallow and he is stupid in the sense of, lacking any kind of intellectual sophistication,
yeah.
lacking even emotional sophistication,
Hmm.
right?
But if
So
but if he weren't asleep and he were at that because he goes to sleep, he doesn't actually witness the event. But
right,
if he were there, he would have kind of responded in a guttural, visceral way too, because he is like that. I mean, although he's a
right,
surface level person, he just says what he feels, and he would have felt
right.
bad about and I
Yeah,
think and I also felt that after he pissed on the ancestral tree,
right,
he got sad. He was not the same after that. Not because anybody, because he was yelled at by that other guy, but he felt although immediately he said, "Oh, so what? I mean, I didn't know. It's just a dead tree,
right,
though, etc." But I noticed that after that event, he was not the same person. He was
right.
quite despondent, and I mean, till that girl comes and tells him that I want to show you something, and then he comes back into his true form. She's going to show me something, and he leaves. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
He's like
among
a child in
he's
that
like a,
way. I felt like he
yes,
was like a child, immature.
yeah,
He because it hurt his feelings essentially. Because even when I think they sit down at that
yeah, yeah,
particular meal right before the girl takes him away, he makes remarks about how Ulf, which is the Harga member that got really upset with him, is dirty looking him, right?
yeah.
He's across from him, he's evil eyeing him. And, he's just sort of dismayed. And then, she shows up and, his last words are, she's going to show me. And
Yes.
that's the end of him. I mean, we never see him again except his skin, um, which it reckons or it harkens back, if you will, to the game they'd been playing, Skin the Fool,
Yeah.
right? Because they do skin his face at least. And my understanding is they skinned part of his legs because that is actually a Nordic tradition. So um, that
He's the fool.
that's sad. He's the first one to go,
Yeah.
right? I mean, as far as the American group,
Mm.
isn't that right?
And for
It,
and for no good reason. I can understand Josh. I mean, not that I understand him, but I can sort of see the logic of it within the film or within the ethics of the community. I can understand that Josh was asked to not do something and he did it. Uh,
right,
with Mark, he didn't know that that tree. I mean, he wouldn't do it again. I'm sure he wouldn't do it again. I mean,
right,
because he now knows what that tree is. So he
right,
is he is an innocent from within that context. He is an
right.
innocent victim also.
But in that regard, I mean, I took it as all of the people that were invited from, you know, I can't
Different.
think of the guy's name that invited Connie and Simon, but he ends up being a
Ingmar,
sacrifice.
yes.
He is a willing sacrifice at the end ritual. And then the Americans, with the exception of Danny, my understanding was that was the whole plan from the start. That is,
It was, yeah, yeah.
and again,
But
I hear a lot of people,
I think although there was a plan from the beginning, the group, the commune has not seen them. So the
right,
commune has to make a decision, and their behavior in the commune is going to influence the commune's decision because the commune is not going to already decide on who will be the sacrificial victim, who will be the sort of the seed bearer. Uh,
right. That was to be determined.
that was to be
But
determined, yeah, astrologically, etc.
right. But I did think that in that final, when the head lady, let's just call her the boss lady, the Harga boss lady, she explains the ritual, and it's at the very end, and it's very clear that there have to be nine
Nine.
sacrifices.
Yeah.
Four of them have to be from within the community,
Yes.
four of them are from outside, and then the May Queen decides the ninth one. And so, given that they only brought in, right,
Mm,
a total of what was it, six,
mm,
four Americans and two
mm,
British, that it seems like that was determined that
mm,
those people were going to be the outside sacrifices, since you have to have a total of nine and
mm,
four of them have to be from
mm,
outside. Granted, it ended up being five because Danny chose Christian over Torbjorn,
mm.
right? Torbjorn was the lottery, the one that was chosen by
Yeah.
lottery. And then she made that final choice. Um, and it seemed like they were definitely going to use one or more of them for breeding purposes, if you will,
Yeah.
right? The little redheaded girl, Maya. And she seemed to be the one who chose Christian. She,
Exactly.
she
Yes.
liked him. Maybe because they're both
But
redheaded. I don't know.
but wasn't Mark also chosen by that other girl? Why didn't Mark get to be Christian, in other words? I
I
mean, why
thought
did
that was more of a ruse. I took it
why?
as a ruse.
Why
And
though?
I thought it was because Mark showed interest in her early on when she came to say,
Yeah.
"We're going to watch Austin Powers," right? She spoke in her own tongue, but she says, "Hey, all the kids are about to watch Austin Powers if anybody wants to." And he,
But Mark would have shown interest to any of the girls there. I
right,
mean,
I
that's
know,
just who he
totally.
is. I mean, there's so
No, I think
I
Mark was, you know, I mean, I think the might have been just the Maya's choice, the redheaded girl, that she got to choose which of the guests.
so if I understand this correctly, there's only one. Oh, okay. So, all right. So only one girl is making the choice now this year.
It seemed that way to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hmm.
Now, granted, the boss lady, if you remember when she had Christian come into her house,
Mm.
right? And she made him wait just a little bit. She did say, "You're a perfect astrological match." Now, did they really do the astrology? I don't know.
Because it, because if he was only an astrological match, what was the room for? What was Maya's interest in him? How did, or maybe it's something that happens in Indian weddings. So generally, what happens is if you like someone and you like go and meet their parents, and if they like you, and if they
Mhm.
like this match, if that is settled, that's not the end of the thing. Now comes the astrological alignment question, and
Right.
and
To
that
make
has to,
sure.
yes, that
To
has
make,
to match too. And
right.
so only if the astrology thing also goes perfectly, only then would you get to
Right.
go to the
And I mean, we have no way of knowing whether that was sincere on the part of the
yeah,
Haruka. But by then she had already done the rituals, right? She put
yeah,
pubic hair in his meat pie. She had put a love rune under his bed. She was definitely, giving him looks. But it did seem that she made that choice once she, Pele had explained, I don't remember the term that was
yeah,
used, but basically that she's reached the age where
age.
she
Hmm.
can have sex. And so my assumption was that, yeah, they bring these people in, and you got to remember that final ritual only happens once every 90
90 years.
years.
Yeah.
So it is not like any of the people we saw ever experienced that again.
Mm,
Remember, they only lived to 72.
mm,
So, I guess maybe if you saw it, no, I guess it's impossible mathematically to ever see that ritual twice.
mm.
So that kind of lessens, I think, the impact of it. I think when people see the film, they might miss that feature of it,
Yeah.
and they are thinking this is happening all the time,
No, no, no.
but
Yeah.
that's not the case. Now,
But I do think that they have to constantly bring in new recruits
yeah,
because
every
like
year, I would think,
every year.
every year, I would think they might
Yeah.
bring in strangers, at least for the breeding.
That's what they
You know,
say. That's what they said that because he asks Christian
right,
with his newfound subject now for
right,
his PhD. So he asks him about the incest question,
right,
and he does say that we need to bring in people from outside to avoid inbreeding, except the prophet. He's the one who
right, which is always purposefully
purposely.
inbred, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I just assumed that every year at midsummer, the members of the community that have gone off to university
Yeah.
try to bring some friends, and that it's just for the breeding. That, that just
I wonder what they do to the. I mean, so let's imagine the year after this one, the one that we saw. In that case, they wouldn't have to sacrifice the friend, right? So they just have to
right
arrange a
for
sexual
sex,
encounter,
right,
and yeah,
right. And
yeah.
and so in that way, I think if we understand it in the way it's put forth, that
Once
this
in 90 years,
horrifying,
it's okay. I
yeah, it's not
mean,
that often. I mean, and the Adastupta, it only occurs when member reaches age
reaches that
72. And
age, yeah.
so that might not be every year either, right? That might just be sometimes whenever somebody reaches that age, right?
So
So,
So in a way, these these students they were in a way unlucky to have visited in that particular year,
exactly.
which means that in other years it's fine. It's not going to be like this all the time.
Right. It's
So yeah,
dancing and
yeah,
hallucinogenics and maybe
yeah,
sex with
yeah, yeah,
members and
yeah.
right.
And
So
and and that calculation should go into our evaluation of the community because if it's going
I
to
think
happen
so.
every year, then this is a death count. But if it happens once every 90 years, that
Right.
doesn't exonerate. That's a different question still, but at least it, it, it it's not something that it's rare enough that one can understand. Or
I think so. I
Mm,
think so. And so I think when people, because I've just heard it here and there, people saying, oh, the villain is the cult and Pele, they're the bad guys. And I just feel like that's a little superficial, and it's, you're not
yeah,
going in depth in the analysis with
right,
that, because
right.
like it's not just merely the 90-year thing either. Even the Arastupta, it's mentioned in the movie, and I can't remember, maybe you remember who says it, but someone says, well, why is this any worse than what we do? We
Yeah,
just put our old people in a nursing home, right? And I'm like, exactly.
yeah,
Like, no, you have to consider, the plural perspectives on this.
yes.
72 is a little young, in my opinion, but if your whole belief system is set up on four sets of
Yes,
18,
yes,
that's just,
but I also think that you're right. Of course, one but one has to like understand how the society works. Every society has a different approach of negotiating with death, basically.
mhm,
But but I think that the film also critiques a simple empiricist anthropological third person observation approach to this as well because what
mhm,
often can happen and it's interesting that these are students of anthropology because what can often happen that to the anthropologist this can become so um, normal because the anthropologist sort of understands this from a sort of historical and cultural context perspective, it, the event and the people can become objects for him,
right. Sure.
for his curiosity, which is
Right.
also not sufficiently pluralistic,
Right.
because in a way that's what leads to Josh's death.
Yes.
His sort of
Yes.
em empiric, I don't know how to put this, but his his sort of observational curiosity filled objective approach, he
Right.
doesn't
It's a
quite
nexus.
Yes,
There's a nexus there with a certain kind of entitlement and privilege too. I
yes,
felt like.
that's true. That's true because he's that and he doesn't quite sympathize with
Mhm.
what's happening. That's important in order to be pluralistic. You also have to step into the shoes of the community that you're observing even. And
Mhm.
doing that would not preclude getting a bit disturbed by I mean,
Right.
it doesn't mean that because you're disturbed, you're not being pluralistic. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're completely unfazed by what is happening, that kind of means that you haven't quite entered into that community
Right.
yet. You're just
Right.
standoffish and empirical about it. I mean, that's also
Right.
being criticized because he didn't
I think
care.
so.
He didn't care about taking a picture of the
No, I
Ruby
mean,
Radha. Yeah,
yeah, he's being completely disrespectful,
yeah.
blatantly violating the things he agreed to. And, in that regard, he seemed very opportunistic. But again,
Yeah.
I thought these were representations of Anglo-American ethos. That's how I took the film in large part. Like,
Mhm.
there's a line when kind of early on at the time at the Harga, right? Once they've got there, it might be their first day there when they're amidst the people. And yeah, because they're doing the skin the fool dance,
Mhm.
and somebody got kicked in the leg.
Mhm.
Um, but some one of the members, it might be Mark, I can't recall, says, is it okay to join? And
Yeah.
Pele's words are, it's a great quote. What does he say? Oh, you're an American, just jam yourself in
Just
there.
jam yourself in there, right? He says that.
And
Yes,
I
yes,
was
yes.
like, there's the critique right there of the
Mhm.
Anglo-American ethos and historical,
Could you elaborate on that? I see what he means, but if you could, I mean,
just jam yourself in there.
mhm.
Well, again, like if we're going to take America and the UK, right, sort of as a lineage, I mean, what have they done on the planet,
Right.
right? They've colonized, invaded, helped orchestrate the overthrow of leaders to put their own leaders in place so they can extract resources.
Mm.
I mean, I just took it that way. And that, again, this is Sweden. So these are other
Oh.
white cultures, if you will,
Uh,
right? No
uh,
European ones, but they're still very critical
mm.
of that
Yeah,
ethos.
and not only critical, they're also condescending of
Oh
American,
yeah, yeah,
because I read it in that condescending way because yeah, you don't you wouldn't care if you do the dance wrong. You wouldn't care
right,
if you did not know how to perform some of the ceremonies and so on. I mean, Americans,
right.
I mean the sort of which is also kind of a positive thing, positive quality as well. It can be the
It
sort of
can be
shamelessness of
right,
American
but the
cultural appropriation.
shamelessness.
Yeah,
But shamelessness and entitlement. That's
yeah,
that's the key thing I took from it. It's like you think you know best no matter what, so just go ahead and jam yourself in there. That's what you do. I mean, that's who you are. You're an American. Just
right,
get in there.
right,
Um,
right,
you know, with, again, I do believe, I know that was Pele that said that. And Pele is in full awareness of everything that's going to happen. And
right.
so, there's a way in which, and we haven't really talked about Pele yet, but I find him a fascinating character and an
Mhm.
interesting character. And, I guess, we have to acknowledge he's a villain of sorts, but he's a complex one, in my opinion. And,
Okay.
you know, again, is his entire kindness and love a facade? I don't think so. But
Hmm.
yet, he clearly knows what he's doing with this friend group and knows, at least to some degree, what the end result's going to be, right? Um, but yet, and he's the one that says, "Oh, you're an American. Just jam yourself right in there."
Right.
That's
So,
um,
let's discuss the complexity of this character. So we have looked at Mark, Simon, Danny. We haven't actually, but maybe at the end we could go to her. But with Pele, so here's what I think. Immediately speaking, on
mhm,
like at one level, he is who he is. he's born in this commune. This is how they do things, and he's just in a way he can give the Eichmann response.
Right.
It was these were the orders, and I knew no better. But I would
Mhm.
accept that only from someone, at least at least not wholeheartedly, but I would understand that if someone who has never left the commune said that. But
Right.
but Pele had opportunities for other ways of friendship than
Hmm.
what the commune dictates for him. So
Right.
I just feel that he never left the commune, even though he's not
Right.
only been to the US, but he's also been to an anthropology. I'm guessing it's the anthropology department because that's what
Right.
Danny asks him. So
Mhm.
he has had the opportunity to study world culture. He's had the opportunity to have friendships beyond the dictates of the commune,
Right.
but he still remained the same person. So uh, he just never let the world shape him in any other way. So that's for me, not a criticism, but that's for me something curious or something
Right.
interesting about
Right.
his character. Um,
And
yeah,
the film doesn't, it just doesn't go into any kind of scenes where we get an opportunity to hear Pele's,
yeah,
own reflections on the kinds of things you're noting. At the same time, though,
mm,
unlike someone who's never left the commune, which would be their own kind of category, like
right,
an Aristotelian intemperate, right? Because they don't even have a context for,
yeah,
to make distinctions. He has, as he has, and nonetheless, he does seem to be consciously
yeah,
and authentically choosing the
mm,
values of his culture. Because, he makes enough remarks in various ways that we do see that he's totally capable of comparing and contrasting,
yeah,
evaluating. And in fact, that's actually what I would argue is some of the the things he says to Danny in that one scene
yes,
is where I cannot just write him off as a vicious character because I believed he was sincere and the values that he's setting forth, I think are legitimate values. And the scene I'm referencing in particular is when he sits down with Danny on the edge of that bed and he says, but I do understand, my parents died in a fire and I do understand. She had been crying and he's
and
trying
I
to
can guess which fire that would be, but no.
well, yeah, that's the
It could,
question. But he
but it couldn't be
says,
that fire because that only happens once in 90 years.
yeah,
So,
exactly. It couldn't have been. So, but what he says to her is, I never had the chance to not feel held.
hmm,
I had a family waiting for me,
hmm,
and they scooped me up and they embraced me.
hmm.
And he just asked her, do you feel held?
Yeah.
Does Christian feel like home? And see, I took that whole scene as very sincere. And that to me was
So
like the
that
redeeming thing.
he was definitely sincere in that scene, and I think he was always, yeah, you're right. He is a conscious. He's not brainwashed, if
Right,
he because he does know, even from an outside perspective, what he is part of. And
hmm.
it looks as if he also is empathetic to Danny's situation. He knows that
Oh
she
yeah,
doesn't have a family, and
yeah,
Christian is not what he should be with her.
right,
So
right.
yeah, at that point, that show of concern from him is real. But then the other shoe is, I mean, you did know that, yeah, for Danny's gonna get a family, but you did know that the others are going to be sacrificed. I mean, uh, that is, I
Right.
mean, you're ready to take too much. You're ready to pay too high a price for.
See, but that's where I feel like, okay, the Harga is a very obviously small,
Hmm,
right? If we're looking at if we're trying to think of communities, right? And communities on whatever level, a nation, a city, a state, a county, a community. So
Yes.
the Hargas are very small. They're very small. And they're going to kill 9 people once every 90 years.
Mm,
Let's be real. I
mm.
think that ranks them pretty high as
But
far as what cultures are better.
right,
Like,
right. Okay,
I mean,
that's
how
true.
many people have
Right.
the United States
Kill.
had killed
Right.
in the last 90 years
Right.
for their influence?
But um when he is friends with these three individuals with whom he goes out for beer and so on.
Right,
I mean, that's then at that level, it is more than statistics. It's you really know these people. They think of you as a friend, and to them, friendship means something different. They don't,
right,
so I mean, he doesn't see that angle or that
right.
aspect of things. So to that extent, he's not
Well, I
blamed.
think
Yeah.
I think that's an open question, honestly, though, because I mean, yes, he's got to know that he's practicing deception and
Mhm.
manipulation. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that.
Or
But
mm,
what if he actually, I mean, his worldview, as articulated by the boss lady, remember when she explains it very briefly, and when she's talking about the Aristupta, but she says, we are part of nature. This is how we see, we give back. We end our lives and
mm,
we return to nature. And
mm,
so I feel like if he's committed to the metaphysics
mm.
of his community, there you can argue. I'm not saying it's good or
No,
right or
no, that's
whatever.
yeah,
I think it's a legitimate view that he may not see what he's doing
yeah.
as wrong in
Mm.
any way. He's
And
he's freeing
the
them,
right, right,
freeing.
right, right. But the other question that I have is, would Josh and Mark have lived had they not, in one case, violated the photography ban, and in the other case,
No,
urinated
I
on
don't
that
think
tree.
so. I thought they were destined to die because of the number of dead that was required. They say explicitly it has to be 4 outsiders
Mm.
and 4 of their own. That's the rule. And
So
again,
no
it's
matter
once every
what,
90 years,
so no matter how they behave, they would have been. I mean,
four of
Connie,
them,
right? But
4 of them.
Connie didn't do anything. She's still
Right.
right,
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it was because of their character. I think their character is just a different part of the story where we
right,
can look at it.
right,
And,
right.
on another level, and this is interesting, it's just occurring to me. There's a way in which that idea is a great metaphor, if not more, it's not even hardly a metaphor, it's almost as literal for how life unfolds, the sort of
Right,
seeming randomness.
right.
Why did that good person die? Why did that,
Well,
and it
in,
there's
in
it's
fact, in fact, we could take this one step further. We could say that, these were not the only deaths that happened in the film. They were also the deaths of the parents and the sister.
yeah,
And the sister,
absolutely.
right, and the sister was bipolar. I don't deny that, but she did cause the death
She
of,
killed her parents.
yes, which,
She deprived her sister of her.
right,
See, I took that like really as heavy. Like, if we're going
heavy,
to start doing moral accountability, I mean, despite Terry's mental illness, as
yeah.
far as impact of behavior, like she deprived her sister of her sister's parents. Like, how utterly, like, horrifying. And,
And
we could argue selfish, right?
and knowingly, in the sense that she was literally in contact with the sister
Yes.
two minutes ago. So she could
And
have,
said, the parents are coming with me. Bye.
yeah,
Like,
that was
and
nothing.
so
That's much
again,
more than what Pele did. We could
absolutely.
we could
And again, I
complicate
think a
that.
lot of I mean, I haven't read that Ari Aster has said this, but as far as my interpreting the film, I felt like at least one of the many things he was doing was kind of putting these side by
Yeah.
side sort
Mm.
of things among cultures, if anything, to maybe
No,
help
no.
us reflect how we have this default preference for
Mm.
the cultures we're attached to and maybe we're unwilling to dive a little deeper and see how
Mm.
our culture is full of, murder and harm and hurt and such. I mean, it's just the way I read the film. I
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
felt
And
it was
that would be the more complicated way to think about these questions. Yes, there's
great.
definitely that contrast of two different approaches to death and two different realities of death.
Yeah. And of
Yeah,
life itself, what is
life
the
itself. Yeah,
meaning? Remember, they say in the film that all the children are raised in common, right? That's Plato's Republic. I
yeah,
mean, they have these children and everybody is their family. And, when you give like serious reflection to that, and again, we can talk about the history of the notion of the nuclear family. That's a recent development. Historically, families are multi-dimensional,
yeah.
generational, excuse me, multi-generational, so they're extended, and you do have a better safety net. But when you've just got mom and dad and children,
Mm.
how easy it is to just utterly destroy the security of a child, right? Just through
Which
happenstance, car
which
accident, kill the
which
parents. I mean,
which actually goes back to the first scene because
mhm,
that is a nuclear family. There's only
right,
one I think teenage girl with with her parents, and um, uh, she's mentally ill, and which nuclear families themselves can be causes of that too. I mean,
right,
and yeah, she didn't have a support network with her. Which,
right. And the
in other words, if she were in that commune, something like that could never have happened. She would have,
That's how I took it.
yeah, yeah,
That's how I took it.
yeah,
And that, another example of that is when Danny does see Christian. We assume, we're not shown, but she looks in, and
yeah.
it would seem as if she saw him having sex with Maya, and she begins to cry. And the group of females, right, they synchronize their breathing with her. They begin to cry with her. And I'm fascinated by it and would love for research to be done on the efficacy of empathizing grief in those kinds of ways, because it seems to me that it could potentially be incredibly
But
cathartic.
it could be,
Um,
but at the same time, I felt that the way I saw that, yes, there is that cathartic element, but also often what happens in these shared synchronized activities like activity of grieving and so on is that the singular nature of her trauma with this singular man, Christian, gets kind of dissolved into a group experience, which I mean, it's I mean, for example, I mean, it can solve the trauma, but it does not attend, I think, to the singularity of what she's grieving, and
Right. And it's
and
obviously more complex than just Christian, right? Because it's
it
tied
is,
to what
yeah,
happened to her parents and her general feelings of abandonment, of carrying a lot of responsibility because
right.
she's the good kid, right? Or the okay kid. I mean, it's complex, but and at the same time, I'm totally while I'm watching it again, I'm thinking about the notion of the term for two people shared delusion is folie à deux, and there's a different term for when it's a group. And I'm aware of that also, like, is that part of what's happening in the commune? And obviously it's a danger. But yeah, I don't think there's a final word on it. I just think that's what
No, no, no.
I
I'm just, yeah, yeah,
that
absolutely.
it's
I'm,
meant for this rich
yeah,
sort of reflection um, on the ways in which we might
yeah, yeah.
unreflectively prioritize our own norms, our own values,
Hmm.
whereas the film invites us to maybe think about things in a different way, a more plural way,
Yeah,
right? Not that it's right, wrong, or what have you,
yeah.
um,
Um,
but definitely.
yeah.
And again, did he have his eye on Danny? Because remember, she was not even invited to Sweden until two
So
weeks before.
we could actually then begin a discussion on Danny as a character because
Sure,
we did not talk about her separately as a character on her
right.
own. yeah, she was not invited, and I I just feel that she was such a neglected
Yeah,
person. She was so neglected by this guy who
right.
clearly is not interested in her. And I mean the
Yeah,
word
two
int
years, right? Isn't
yeah,
that what it said in the film? They had been dating for 2 years.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
that because they talk about it at one point.
Yeah, they did because she asked Connie and Christian
Right.
and
Simon. Mhm.
Simon about their relationship. But he was not interested in her. By that I mean not just interest as a love interest. He's just not he's not enjoying the
Right.
relationship. You know,
Mhm.
he's bored of her. And
Right.
the only thing that he needed to do was to be honest about that and break the relationship. And that's actually what Mark says he should do. But he says that what if I regret that
Exactly.
later? I
Oh
may
my
want.
God.
So it's a wager. It's like it's
Mhm.
not that's how unserious this person is for him. So
Right.
he's just going on with this so that he doesn't regret this later, which
Right.
basically means that he doesn't want to be single. And so
Right.
this entire relationship is just an attempt to not be single. That's all.
Right. Right.
So
And
that's
I
what's
and I
sad.
felt like he would drop her in an instant if he felt he found someone
Which
else.
happened,
Right. Yeah.
which did happen, which then
Right.
shows the communists in a much better light that, you know, relationships are much more serious than this in the commune. And and the violence that happens in relationships in this sort of individualistic universe that America represents, the violence of that is not obvious, but it is there. There's a lot of
Mhm.
violence that takes place in this um,
Right.
setup. I mean, a lot of the film is about explicit and implicit violence, basically.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so yeah. So Danny, yeah, neglected girlfriend, basically. um,
Very codependent. She's
very
very
codependent.
codependent.
Yeah.
She's very fast to take responsibility for whatever is wrong. I mean, that shows from the very beginning where she will, whatever goes on between her and him, because he's a gaslighter. He
He is.
gaslights her, and
Yeah.
then she'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." And and
The
I was
best example of that was, he forgot, but I forgot to remind him about my birthday.
right. Yeah, that is wild. Yeah,
That's fine.
very American though. I
Yeah.
mean, gee.
Mhm.
um, and her last name, I find interesting. Her name is Danny Ardor, and ardor, passion, but it comes from
Mhm.
the Latin, which means to burn. And so I just think that's cool.
Interesting. That's
Right?
really interesting. Yeah.
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 So,
So, she basically invites herself in to this trip and into the group, clearly
mhm,
not liked by the boy gang,
right,
because they want to do the boy things, and she might
right.
become a hindrance to all that. There's a lot of feminist analysis that can
Oh yeah.
just that can produce
Oh yeah.
so much
The
interesting analysis.
bro culture,
The
bro
bro
culture.
culture, yeah, yeah,
Mark is the spokesperson on that for sure, though.
yes,
Josh is kind of ambivalent. He's in his book all the time.
yeah.
But Mark is definitely, yeah,
It does appear that for Josh, it's not gender. I mean, he treats the rest of his friends exactly like he treats Danny too. So
yeah, yeah.
he he's on
He's a
that,
bit of an egoist. Yeah,
yes, but gender equal egoist.
right, right,
Gender
right,
diverse egoist. He's like that with everyone. But yeah, Mark is the spokesperson for that kind of boy or male bro culture,
right.
which is also ashamed of caring, ashamed of showing
Yes,
care, ashamed of
right. Can't
showing
be vulnerable.
vulnerability. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And very judgmental of vulnerability,
Hmm.
because it doesn't appear as if Pele and Josh care one way or the other regarding his relationship with Danny, but Mark is really. you know.
Right. Mark wants him to get rid of her. The one thing I remember Josh noting, and this is early in the film when they're having the pizza, right before her or as her parents are going to die. Josh simply proposes sort of this psychoanalytic thing where he says, could all this be a distraction from you focusing on the thing you should be focusing on, your thesis, right? And to me, again, that's why Josh was kind of like a bit of an egoist and a driven kind of, academic figure. Like hey, bro, you should be focused on yourself and your success,
Right,
right?
right. That's
And
him.
Mark is like, focus on how many chicks can you bag, right? Kind of low level bro
Right,
culture.
right, right.
But
Hmm. So,
and
so,
Pele's rather quiet.
oh, because
Because I really watched this time to see if Pele really says anything amidst the
no,
bro discussions, and he
it
seems to
doesn't.
abstain.
And it doesn't appear as if that this is another interesting thing to discuss. Although he has this mission to bring these people into the commune, he doesn't actually influence that in any way. He had no hand in
Mm,
Danny deciding to come. He just is
right.
happy that she does, but he doesn't. So I wonder if everything is that predestined as we think, because he doesn't. If he already wanted her to be the May Queen and so on, he would
He would
have
have invited her.
invited her or something. He
No.
doesn't play any role in
Mm-mm.
that. Yeah, yeah,
No, I took that to be more of just, again, it's not like we get us insight into his sensibilities, but that just that sort of approach to things where you're like, let go and let God, right? Like
yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
really just kind of like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do, and everything else will take care of itself. And then when
Right.
she happened to come, it did seem like he had genuine empathy for her already, just as sort of this
Yeah,
abused girlfriend of Christian and then a person who's lost her family,
right,
right?
right. And
Um,
she just comes there because she she
d-
can't be
yeah,
alone for 1.5
exactly.
months.
That's what I took it to be. It's like,
But
she,
but the real horror of the of the show of the film is how weirdly uncaring everybody is towards her, given how much she has suffered.
right.
I mean, if she suffered this much, shouldn't you? I mean, it doesn't even matter at that point whether you're a girl, you're a boyfriend or not. You're a friend at least to this person
Right,
whom you have known for 2 years, and this is the
right,
level that he can do for her. That itself was quite painful and
right.
a critique of American relationships, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so too. And I also think that's a key element, right, of the sort of unfolding of her
yeah,
character
yeah,
through the things that happen.
yeah,
And I know it's common for people to read the film like her vulnerability and trauma made her susceptible to the cult. And that's one read, but I actually feel like you can read it in a different way too, which
mhm,
was she was presented with opportunity to see things in a different way.
yeah,
She was able to feel things in a different way, and something shifted with that.
yeah,
And again, I don't see the Harga as evil necessarily. I think it's a different metaphysical understanding of existence, and it just happened that in that situation, it all resonated with her,
right.
and she embraced it. And
Yeah,
she
and
does make the decision to kill Christian.
she
And
does.
I take that as pretty not right or wrong kind of thing, but that was a feminist
That was a
moment,
feminist. Yeah,
you
that was.
know.
And the Harga
Um,
did not force her to do that. She had
no,
the
and
other
she's
option.
crying.
Yeah.
She's like, you could see she looks pained. I mean, but
And
and again, I think it's meant as metaphor,
yeah,
right?
and
That willingness.
it's the I don't want to say it's like a payback, but it's definitely a reaction to so much that she had to put up with, so much insult.
Right.
I mean, somebody else
Mhm.
is asking you about your birthday not being remembered, for example, being
Right.
one of the things, but so much emotional abuse and neglect that she had to undergo. That's why that reaction um, um, uh, it comes to her kind of naturally, and she also smiles at the house being burnt.
Yeah.
Again, there's a
Hmm.
feminist, yeah, that all that is a feminist
Right.
metaphorical sort of thing.
I
That
think so.
yeah,
It's a like in a female empowerment thing. Again, not meant to be literal, go burn your
no,
boyfriend,
no,
but
no, yeah,
often kind of talked about in the literature where, especially women who've been trapped in unfulfilling, neglectful, or abusive codependent relationships, how incredibly difficult so many women find it to
yeah,
break free of
yeah,
that, to let it go.
and
They endlessly trying to fix it and
right, right,
salve it. And
right.
um, that to me is what that is when she's like, nope, that's it,
That's
you
it.
know.
And I like how they kept it banal too, because then it's kind of every day, because Christian really doesn't do anything uh like he's not abusive in that sense.
Right,
He's just he it's just he's just in a relationship that he is not able to get out of. That's all he is doing.
hmm,
But
hmm,
but his actions are representative of the everyday neglect that
right.
that some women experience.
And
And
so the banality of evil,
yes,
right? That
exactly,
makes me think.
exactly. Yeah, it is the banality of evil. And actually, it's the banality of evil concept also applies to the film in another way. To everybody in the commune, this is a banal event in the sense that this is not remarkable at all. This is how it is.
Right,
You bring people in. There will be human sacrifices. There are voluntary sacrifices. There are some that are not voluntary, and this is just how it is. And
right,
everybody takes
right,
this as a of course kind of thing.
right.
And and when like Christian sort of wakes up from the chicken coop scene,
Hmm.
the girl who
Right,
wakes him up has a smile on her face. It reminded me of this meme where where the meme says that, this is how my HR manager looks at me just a second before firing me or something like
right,
that.
right,
It's just a common thing, just how
right,
it is. That's so the smiles on their faces is also part of that banality of evil hypothesis. So
right.
yeah, yeah,
But and again though, we don't get to know the following, but because these sacrifices are only once every 90 years, that means everybody there has never even
yeah,
participated in it before. They've only learned of it through the elders and through the stories. And so just like with a lot of religions, what occurs to me is that it really, you can embrace it and see it as this incredibly important, beautiful, meaningful thing. And so that's why I said for Pele, we can't discount the idea
yeah, yeah,
that he believes that what he's doing isn't bad for his friends, that
yeah,
he's
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
that it's setting them free, it's as letting them return to the cycle. And
yeah,
so I think the movie's rich in that regard. It invites a lot of different ways
yes.
of looking at it
And
and thinking.
Pele is definitely not insincere in in how he uh, inhabits his worldview. That's for
I
sure.
don't think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like he is
But
sincere.
I wonder if there are two questions. One is what will happen to Danny, and if Danny will become seamlessly part of this world too. So
That's what I took it to be. I took it to be that, and that she actively made that choice too. Like there was moments of decision, and she seems to ultimately
mm,
each time embrace it and go with it. Um, because what has she got?
She
Nothing.
has
Her
nothing.
family is dead.
Yeah,
Like she
yeah,
has no family.
yeah.
She has a boyfriend that was like neglectful and didn't care, and that became increasingly, obvious. And so that's why I think when she chooses to kill Christian, that's what that's signaling is goodbye to the old life, to the old
Yes,
way of being,
yes, yes.
right?
And
Um,
in that scene when she is about to be taken to bless the crops as the May Queen, she asks, and it's quite a sweet scene in my opinion.
yeah,
She's asking
I
Christian,
know.
you
I
know.
know.
So
I
that's
know.
very sweet. Yeah, even at till that point, she is still concerned about Christian. And
Right. It's
uh,
only when she sees him with Maya, I think
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
And from her perspective, it's not enough. It doesn't nothing excuses that somehow, even if
right.
he was
And
coerced.
that scene in itself is very wild, and it's clearly a strange kind of ethos around the
It's
sex
like
and procreation
it's
and
like the entire commune is engaged in sex. So,
right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not in the sense of an orgy, but in the sense of,
It's
participating,
conception.
yeah,
Conception. And
empathizing with the,
I think we can there's a case to be made that how can we have a dim or overly critical view of their ritual to bring about conception while we say give the approval to other ones like a spirit impregnating a virgin. I
yeah,
mean, you see what I mean? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, so it wasn't like those women were, to me, what I saw was not women who were being sexually gratified. It was more it felt more spiritual and that it's spirit via
Oh
the
yeah,
body. And so,
I think sex itself in the commune, like I mean, in even in Plato's Republic and so on, sex is only for procreation.
yeah.
So it looks
And
like that. So sex is
yeah,
not,
and even if there's pleasure, it's not like some weird taboos with, you
no,
know, um, whatever. And so those women, because if you remember, they're singing, and that one woman actually gets really close to
really
Christian's
so
face
great. So
and makes eye contact with him,
right,
right? And she's
right,
like making eye contact with him and like singing and moaning. And
right.
I found it pretty fascinating, really. And I'm sure it was freaky to him, but he was on something.
He was
Um,
already quite drugged. I mean,
yeah,
in fact, an entirely different approach to the entire film could be through the question of the role of drugs and psychedelics,
right,
how that impacts
right.
everything. It's everywhere
Yeah,
in
because
that film.
he was given two different things. First, he
One
was
to
given a
inhale.
drink. A
Yes,
drink was first. That seemed to be the hallucinogen, and then the inhalant they said was for his vitality,
vitality. Yes,
right? And I was like, okay, something akin to
Viagra.
um, yeah, or Damiana is
Uh,
actually a herb that
mm.
does the same thing. So, and then
Aphrodisiac?
uh,
Would it be called an aphrodisiac?
aphrodisiac though makes aphrodisiac, whereas the Damiana is specifically about what is the I'm trying to think the best word, but tumescence, right? The rigidity of the penis,
Mm,
right?
mm,
It really is
right.
powerful
Yeah.
herb for that can
He,
be
he
taken in different
right.
ways,
And
right?
he would like, I mean, it also kind of makes logical sense because he is already so zoned out. I mean, he would need
Right. And maybe freaked out too, so that under normal circumstances his equipment's
which also goes into making the entire process a more objective and
right,
communal one rather than an
right,
individual pleasure seeking one. So,
right.
yeah.
And yeah. And it's interesting too with the whole ritual of the bear because he was put in that bear suit regardless, even if he hadn't been burned. But that's where I was like,
That's an interesting.
were they that confident that she would choose him? Because the bear is what's burning in the imagery that's on the walls
So it
of the
has to be
commune.
so the person in the bear has to be burned in order for the
It
ritual to
kind
be
of seems that
proper. Yeah.
way, but yet so that raises the question, is it an illusion of choice? I
It
don't know.
or they simply understand the relationship so well that they
Right.
know that that's the choice that she will make.
Right.
So
As
which
opposed to some guy that was randomly chose from the lottery,
right,
right?
right, right.
To be
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think that for someone from the commune, like Pele, for example, the issues of their relationship would be so obvious to them
Right.
because it's
Oh
such
my
a
gosh, yes.
contrast to what
Right.
they experience, and that's precisely what Pele says. He doesn't.
Right.
He knows like that there's something wrong in this
Right.
relationship, and so they
Right.
can see her choice much before she makes it. So that's the kind of
Right.
that might be the metaphor there with the him being in the bear suit or in the bear much before she makes the choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as orchestration goes, there's also the relevance of the dance because, while they may have, because, I've given it a lot of thought about is there really choice happening or are they creating an illusion of choice? They could have planned for all the other girls to fall down, but
Yeah,
they
I
can't
thought
stop
that too.
her from falling down. So she could have easily fallen down, just tripped, because you see the girls bump each other. And
Right.
again, they're on
Right.
hallucinogenics. And I don't know if you've ever danced around a pole in the hot sun. You're
Mm,
you get lightheaded, right? So,
right. That's a very interesting point. And now from this point of, I mean, now I see the film completely from a sort of a free will versus determinism, social determinism point of view.
right,
That's a very
right.
interesting thing that you have raised. I mean, the entire film can then be looked at from that perspective.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. And
that's an
also from,
interesting.
like I said, about a perspective of, you used a word predetermination, but I was thinking more of like the notion of gods and deities exerting power over things
Yeah.
unfolding. And so, with Pele,
So
it's not like I don't think he said, I want this woman to be my May Queen and my wife. It could be more like
I sort
it
of did.
just
I did not,
unfolded.
but I did not see the gods feature almost at all. It's the ancestors. She does say spirits once, spirits get back to the bodies or something like that.
He
She's
says also at the ritual, the main woman, the boss woman,
mhm.
God of reciprocity. She does call upon the God of reciprocity. And her house, you know how she had a house where it seemed, I mean, that was the other thing. It was never clear. We know that the 18 to 36-year-olds live in that one house,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We were never shown where are all the
Others
other people. But the main woman, the boss woman, seemed to have a house. It was very sparsely.
where
But did you
Pele goes,
notice
where Pele goes to
the
meet.
rune?
Yeah.
Right. The rune that was carved on her house is the rune that means God. And so I took that as symbolic of her being, and
Prophetess,
she was kind of the high priestess.
high
She was kind
priestess.
of like the top dog
Yeah.
lady or whatever.
Mm,
Yeah. So I did actually feel spirits were referenced, but not explicitly. It was more implicit with the runes because I
right.
tried to look them up. Like every time I saw one, I
Right.
stopped the film, look it up. I want to see what it means. And but then when she does call upon the God of reciprocity and the sun,
Son.
sun,
Yes.
the
Yes.
sun,
Yes.
and the father. And this is all at the end of the film
Oh,
prior to the burning of the house.
right.
So,
Right.
they were referenced in that way. But otherwise, she talked about just your sort of basic pagan Parmenidean view. All is
Yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That's the image that I got predominantly. I mean,
Right.
and so it felt like more of a sort of a stoic
Mm,
naturalist kind of
yeah.
or
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That
so I
that
was
there's
kind of surprised about the God of reciprocity. In
but
fact, I meant to look it up.
the God of reciprocity also kind of is this kind of God, right? I mean, I mean,
Right.
I don't know the Swedish God of reciprocity at all, but a God of reciprocity nicely blends with this idea of nature's cycles. Everything,
Right.
everything has a sort of a beginning and an end,
That
etc., etc.
sacrifices,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Those
yes.
we give so
We
we can
give,
receive.
yeah, yeah. So when I what I did not see that much was like more of an interventionist group of gods who
Right.
who actually
Mhm.
intervene. A god of reciprocity is kind of like the opposite of that, in that
Right.
he's a representation of something like karma, I think, or the cycle of life and so on. But a
Right.
more sort of an interventionist kind of god
Right.
who might be angered if you don't do something and then would change the
Right.
course of
Right.
events. I mean, that's not. Uh, I didn't see any of that in this commune. So that's
Right.
interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked that and it kind of goes with what we're saying on a lot of these other points. That entire temple, if you will, remember it was full of, I believe, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but wasn't it called the Ruby Raider?
Yeah.
It's their texts, and it's a never ending. It's being written
That's an
continuously,
interesting.
which I thought was fascinating. And then the only thing there that I was a little bit like, was you've got the purposefully inbred prophet who draws pictures, but they're interpreted by the elders. And so I was like, wow, because that means, that group of people is always changing, right?
Mhm.
Because you die at 72. Um, they can interpret in whatever way they see fit. And I just wasn't sure who are the elders exactly. Is it
Mm.
everybody over age, what was it, 54? Is it all the 54 to 72s?
I would
Or is
think
it just
so.
some? See,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Right,
So
right, right.
I
Yeah.
liked that. I thought it
So,
was interesting.
so other than the main boss woman and maybe the guy who's maintaining the Ruby Radha house,
Right.
other than that, I didn't see any hierarchy. So,
No,
so maybe it's all the elders, all the people in that group, perhaps.
right. With the
So
exception of the boss woman, she wore different
she did,
outfit. Like,
yeah.
I thought she had
And
some hat.
she sat in the center of the
Yes.
long table,
Yes.
across from the May Queen. So
Yes. And she
so
was
that
also at the head of the table at
at the
other
head of the
eating,
table. Yeah, 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 yeah,
right?
yeah,
When the two Tastupta were at the other end, right?
yeah.
She was still sort of at
Absolutely.
the head of the
Yeah,
other side.
yeah.
But the tables were fascinating too. Did you realize they were runes?
Yes, I did
That
realize that. Yes,
Yeah,
when they
they were set up as
show us that.
yeah. Mhm.
I was also fascinated by, I don't know what it means, but in the beginning, the camera turns around, you know,
Upside down.
upside down. So one meaning of that could be that the world that they are entering is a new world where things might
Right,
be upside down from what
right,
we normally
mm,
associate things with. The
right.
other sort of way to read that would be the premonition to one other scene where you have the upside down thing with
Hmm.
Christian looking at Simon from
Oh yeah.
under his, I mean, so that's the other, that's the another example of where the camera does that. So I mean, that could be an ominous kind of thing. I mean, that things are
Right.
going to go south. That's one meaning. The other meaning
Right.
would be that everything that you generally culturally, your cultural intelligibility is going to be turned on its head. That's another meaning
Yeah.
that I took.
I kind of took it more that way because if you remember the actually very first scene is winter, and it appears to be winter in Sweden,
Mm,
because that's the landscape is looks more like the Swedish landscape, but it's like the dead of winter,
yes.
snow, ice, and then it switches to where Danny's parents live, which is also winter.
Mm,
Um, and now that I'm thinking about that, that's interesting because I'm not sure where Danny and Christian lived, like what school they were at,
yeah.
but it was snowing where her parents died. And I'm just now thinking that makes a little bit of a conflict, doesn't it? Because
It's summer?
I thought I thought her parents die very shortly before they go
Yeah.
Sweden, and Midsummer is in June. Do you
Mm.
see? So now I'm like, I need to look that up.
Unless they are from Alaska or something. I don't know if it snows in Alaska and
Right. Or they
in
could be
June.
really far north where it
That's
does
what.
snow in
Yeah,
May, like
yeah,
Vermont. It can snow in May in Vermont,
yeah.
or in the Great Lakes region,
Right,
right? It can snow
right.
late.
Yeah, yeah. Or
But
um, there was a passage of time between. I mean, if you're not specifying, I mean, so one rule of hermeneutics would be that if you're not specifying uh, the particular state, then you just mean any American town, and then it has to
right,
follow a certain common general, uh,
right,
you know, climate that you associate
right,
with any American town. If that's the case, if that rule of hermeneutics applies, then there was at least a space of 3 months between the death of the parents and their Sweden trip, because if that were the case, nothing would actually change in the film. Danny could still
right.
be traumatized for like 3 months. Nothing like it
Absolutely.
doesn't change anything in terms of the film's
Right. The
structure.
only thing is that when she learns about the Sweden trip, it is 2 weeks prior to their departure. That's in the film. They're
Yeah,
at a party
yeah,
and she's like, in 2 weeks?
yeah,
And
that's
that's when they're leaving. So it's
yeah,
possible months had already passed,
right,
like a
right.
few months
It
passed.
yeah, that's a good point though. Good observation that it actually is snowing. Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah, in
right.
the opening scene, it's snowing
It's snowing.
and then in her
Yeah.
parents' death. But anyway, my point being that the
But if
upside
if
down
if
thing,
it's snowing in Sweden as well, then that means that the death might have happened in um February
February.
or something like that.
Mhm.
Now, if we pay close attention to the email exchange, maybe we can spot a date somewhere, so we can
That's a good
actually
point.
solve this this
Yeah,
puzzle.
I'll have to try to
Yeah,
figure it out because now
right,
it's going to be on my mind.
right.
But
Unless
yeah, so
if there is a date, it could be that it doesn't show
yeah,
the date at all. Yeah,
but yeah, I think we hit upon a lot of the things we had talked about. Um, but yeah, I mean, atrocities as acts of love. I mean,
yeah.
uh, but it's not like that's only happening in some weird Harga community. I think if we're being objective, we can recognize it's in most communities
Yes,
or cultures,
absolutely.
right? There's
Absolutely.
atrocities, and then they claim it's done for
For the sake of
some
love. Oh,
love of
that's
nation, love
yeah.
of your fellow man, or
Love of your
whatever.
community, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
interesting.
yeah, no, it's a great, rich film. Um, I think Pele, we can argue, while he might be the villain, he's a victor as well. I mean, he comes out victorious, and as does Danny, I think, from a certain perspective. Um,
And he most probably would uh I don't know if they have wives.
right. I think they don't, but I don't know that. It was more like you can be with
No.
somebody, and then if you don't want to be with them, you don't have to be with them. And
Yeah.
the children are raised communally, so
Hmm.
Um, he obviously had a mom and a dad. He referenced them, Pele did.
Hmm.
So people could stay together, I suppose, if they
So
wish.
if that's the case, he did have a mom and dad, but I don't know if I mean he had like one person who is mom and the another person
Right,
who is dad. So I mean it doesn't mean that they stayed together because everybody is staying communally, which shows
right,
that architecture has a lot to do uh,
right.
with, the, with relationship. I mean, there's a lot.
And you mean the literal architecture of the house? Yeah,
Yeah. A lot of this might just be architectural history, deciding
yeah,
morality, family values, and all
totally.
that.
Well, really, I mean, I was watching that thinking, oh my God, I would struggle to sleep in that big house
Yeah,
with,
children crying, you know.
boys. Yeah,
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 that's funny. But
yeah. But
yeah,
I think we have covered pretty much
a lot.
the film, and
Yeah,
I think we did go into some good depth with the characters and uh,
yeah,
and the whole question of morality and
Right.
and the temptation to read the film morally. That's the
Right.
that's the
From
key
a
thing that
particular lens when we need to
yeah.
be perhaps more ontologically plural
And
and
actually more just ontological in the sense in which Heidegger uses it, that before
right.
the moral judgment, you have to first understand the world structure, you know,
Exactly. Yes.
and sort of bracket your moral urges
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
look at the world as a world in contrast to another world which you might be
Right.
inhabiting. So
Right.
yeah, one has to read the film ontologically and then ontologically to, I mean, I think ontological readings already give in to pluralistic readings. So
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So nice.
yeah.
Nice. Well, thank
Okay,
you.
thank
And
you so much. And yeah,
thanks to everybody.
do check out the hereditary video as well, and do share and like and subscribe both the videos and check out other videos in our channel as well. So,
Yeah. And reach out if you wish, leave a comment.
yes, absolutely. So until next time, bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.